Yeah. Nick Fuentes says Israel's a bigger gross positive to America than Muslims. By the way, isn't that fucking nuts that like these guys so quickly were like, actually this neo-Nazi Nick Fuentes, like as long as he like lowers the temperature on like his overt anti-Semitism, he's good by us.
Do you think has been a bigger net positive to America?
Like he's on fucking Patrick Bet David. He's everywhere now. Immediately, everyone was like, actually, this is great. Like the word Nazi has no fucking power anymore. And I know people will say, oh, it's because you called everything Nazi. This guy is a fucking straight up Holocaust denying neo-Nazi, right? Like he's just straight up. It's like the most unacceptable position you can have in American politics. Obviously, white supremacy doesn't get the same level of play. But now that Israel has basically depleted all of its cultural cachet by actively, all of these advocacy groups have depleted all of their legitimacy by constantly defending Israel. This is not even a point of contention anymore. It's no longer an issue. It's actually a positive. Being anti-Semitic is seen as like as being an earnest, an honest, good faith actor, a guy who says things that are too hard for people to fucking comprehend. But of course, once again, guys who are engaging or trafficking in anti-Semitic conspiracies who claim that they're anti-Israel seemingly don't have all that much issue with Israel when push comes to shove. You can't trust fascists ever, okay? It's that simple.
Oh, well, it has to be Israel, absolutely.
Okay, so a part about that part.
Well, in terms of, I wouldn't say net positive. I would say in terms of raw, maybe like gross positive. Because they've had a lot of contributions culturally and even, in terms of art, literature, music.
But Hossie is still right about Israel. No, he's not. It's just a talking point, man. It's just a talking point. And you dummies are already fucking eating it. He doesn't give a shit. He just wants to fucking deport everyone and anyone that is not considered white in this country. That's it. His hatred for Israel only stems from what he believes is Jewish control, okay? But he still, at the end of the day, absolutely fucking despises Muslims, black people, more than he despises the state of Israel. It's so crazy that, like, a lot of people just ate up this propaganda and were like, well, he was always anti-Israel. It's like, yeah, he was, okay? He was. He's anti-Semitic, he's anti-Israel, but obviously his more consequential agenda here is not to fucking make America decouple from Israel or make America recalculate its allegiance to Israel, as is my goal, right? Because Israel is a violent settler, colonial, criminal entity that is objectively fascist in its inception. Its ideology is fascist. Its ideology is ethno-religious supremacist. It's exterminationist. It's doing a fucking genocide. So if you don't have those kinds of opinions, even if you every now and then bring that up in an effort to win favor with like a lot of fucking dummies, and you just simply think that it's like Jewish control over America or something because of the Talmud or whatever the fuck this guy says, okay, then you're not actually all that invested in the Israel narratives. You're just simply using that to communicate your earnesty. And as the attitude has shifted against Israel, he has become one of the primary truth tellers, in air quotes, on Israel because he's been punished so much for his anti-Semitism. But ultimately, he is a room reader. And as a room reader, he recognizes that if he moderates his position now, then he can maybe capture the attention of larger swaths of the Republican Party's youth and keep pushing the Republican Party to lean further and further into mass deportation and punishing people for being communists, punishing people for being socialists, punishing people for being black and brown, punishing women. It's so wild how many people were so easily duped by this shit.
Also scientifically. But it's difficult to say on that because I also think that there's quite a bit of a detriment. I think that the melting pot comes from the Jewish community.
What do you mean by that?
The idea of the melting pot, that comes from a Jewish playwright. Because Jewish people come to America, and like all immigrants, they say, well, we want America to be more welcoming. So they start to spin up these ideas that, well, America was never the...
Like, this is pure fascist propaganda, right? Like, the notion that America is a diverse country, and it's the same thing that the Nazis said about the Jews in the past. The idea that like we can't be multicultural and there is a superior culture that is being eradicated deliberately by this monolithic force of Jews that are single-handedly changing American collective consciousness into being more open-minded to immigration, and that this is not simply born out of, by the way, his name is Nicholas Fuentes, for the record. He is literally Hispanic, but I'm not even going to get into that. But basically, this is pure fascist belief. This scary out-group is actually coming in to the superior Western culture, superior white country, and is making it by force multicultural in an effort to destroy it. This is exactly what the Nazis believed, and this is exactly what Nick Fuentes believes because he's a fucking Nazi.
This country of white Christians, it's always been a melting pot for all immigrants. They want the country to be more open because that makes it more comfortable for them. It makes it more tolerant for them. But this has also made us more open and tolerant for Muslims, for example. We're bringing, I mean, who's been the biggest driver of like the Hart-Celler 65 Immigration Act? It was like the SPLC, which is run by Jewish lawyers. And so they're major drivers of mass migration. They're also major drivers of the pro-Israel politics, like the Iraq War. It was many Jewish journalists and pundits and advocates.
Sure.
So a point being is like when you calculate on net, and I agree with you, like I think there are a lot of people that are critical of Israel that are
I think a big problem here also stems from the reality that most people don't know how fascism operates. They just think like Hitler, bad guy, killed a lot of Jews. That's why we fought Hitler. I talked about this before. That's not the case. Okay? And because a lot of people don't understand how fascism developed in Germany, how fascism developed in Italy, and what the ideology actually represents, because of its closeness to the modern Republican Party, or just the Republican Party for the last 100 years especially, that by design, most Americans are fucking deluded. They don't realize when like Republicans say, oh, it's cultural Marxism. They don't realize it's like the Nazis used to just slam Judeo-Bolshevism on the front of that and basically say the same shit. These guys want to eradicate any sort of socialist, any sort of leftist, any sort of progressive values, forcibly excise it from society. They falsely believe that white people are this monolithic force of this genetically superior force that if left alone, if were able to build a society on their own, that this society would fucking thrive. And the only way to design that society in a place like America, which is multicultural and incredibly diverse and has benefited greatly from that, the only way for them to design that is by doing concentration camps.
Reluctant to acknowledge the good the Jews do. And I think the Jews they're brilliant. Many of them are brilliant.
So when I'm saying net positive, I'm talking jobs, economy. How often you hear about crime, what they do. Like if you have a choice between living in a city in Minnesota, Dearborn, and living in, I don't know what's the biggest city. What's the city that, Boca Raton, let's just say, right? If you have a choice between raising your family, between Dearborn and Boca Raton, where do you choose?
Boca Raton,
okay,
of course,
so the point is like they go to a place. And by the way, to me, if that was Muslims, guess what? I would say Muslims. Mm-hmm. But statistically, wherever they live, it's safer, things are nicer.
I think one of the most devastating aspects of this is that this kind of Islamophobic comparison between like Jews as a whole versus Muslims as a whole under different circumstances would only be fucking destroyed by a bunch of advocacy groups that have completely fucking dropped the ball, that only care about Israel. And therefore, this actually benefits. Like the ADL is not going to fucking be like, I can't believe Patrick Bet-David is talking to Nicholas Fuentes, who is an objective Nazi who has denied the fucking Holocaust.
Things get better.
I agree.
And that is one part to measure where they're at. Now, do I see them overly aggressive? Do I see them the type that are going to use politicians and buy them like Marjorie Taylor Greene and other people are saying? 100%. Do I see them? They're going to be there in everyone's DM and email saying, hey, we'd love to support you. We'd love to bring you to Israel and, doing all that stuff. It's obvious. I'm seeing it myself. Okay. Do I look at that and shame them and say, oh, you shame on? I look at that and say, no.
I think this is the modern right trying to find, this is the modern right currently in real time trying to find a way to manage the discontent with Israel while simultaneously talk about how like, well, we're pro-Israel obviously because we're pro-Jew. Israel's a Jewish state, and Jews are still infinitely more valuable to this country than Muslims are. And they're trying to figure out a way to manage this conversation, which is ironically what Charlie Kirk was trying to do as well. For the record, like that's precisely what Charlie Kirk was trying to do, because he recognized that like people were very angry. And the reason why people were very angry wasn't just because like they all downloaded the anti-Semitic conspiracies that like Jews control the media, Jews control the government or whatever. They were frustrated with what they were seeing. They were frustrated with the arrogance and the entitlement demonstrated by Israel's envoys. They were frustrated with how much Israel was getting away with doing all this shit with American tax dollars while simultaneously fucking slapping us in the fucking face. And so they are trying to figure out a new way of continuing the allegiance with Israel, which they describe as the Jewish state. Both Nazis and people who are pro-Israel obviously still very much consider Israel to be the Jewish state, right? This is being done for the international Jewry. This is done for Judaism. This is a thing that both Nick Fuentes and Patrick Bet-David agree on. Patrick Bet-David is more on the pro-Israel side. Nick Fuentes is on the anti-Israel side. This is the handshake that the likes of Jake Tapper and the likes of Nick Fuentes agree on, basically. Severing that tie is unacceptable. That is what anti-Zionists do. Anti-Zionists sever that tie, okay? And that is why so many of the efforts from supposed Jewish advocacy groups that are simply Israel advocacy groups have been to try to combat anti-Zionists who actively try to sever this tie. But because of that agreement, they are trying to figure out a way to manage the discourse here. The issue is that it's working amongst regular people. The anti-Semitism is growing and you can't just scold them. I know, especially because the scolding method has almost always been used by Israel advocacy groups. So when you call someone out for being anti-Semitic, immediately they go, what are you, the fucking ADL? Shut the fuck up. It feels like I'm constantly fighting a losing battle here, trying to get Americans to comprehend that like no group of individuals are a monolithic fucking force. It is not the case. Like that is a fundamental principle that many Americans cannot comprehend. This is why for years I tried to explain to people like this is not about upholding some sort of Jewish supremacy or Jewish exceptionalism or anything of that nature, but instead it is just about abiding by my principled stance, my commitment to the notion that no one is monolithic. No one is like single-minded. No one is universally behaving in a certain way. Okay? It's quite difficult to convince others. It's very difficult. But having said that, I feel like I'm stuck in this like unique predicament where on the one hand, I'm constantly fucking trying to combat against anti-Semitism, which at this point is just like impossible to do, while all of the other groups that normally would be tasked with doing this are so predisposed with slamming anti-Semitism accusations against those who they decide are anti-Israel, for those who they are more predisposed with deplatforming, people like myself.
No, I wish Armenians would do that. I've never gotten an invitation from Prime Minister of Armenia. He should probably send me an invite to go there, right? It's not a bad idea to come and show the country. I'm Armenian. I'm a Syrian. Syrians don't have a country. It's probably a good idea. You don't see that. You wish others would do that. So for me, as much as when I go into that, by the way, I'll give you one other side that, Israel's going to be like, yeah. This other side to me is I actually do believe they leverage Mossad to get intel. I actually do believe they use blackmail. I actually do believe they do that. So, there's nothing going on with Epstein. No. Michael Wolff.
This is how it goes, by the way. This is the other side of like tribalism. repackaging like racist concepts, bigoted concepts as though it's just like simple tribalism, right? Oh, dude, come on. Jews stick together. Blacks stick together. Why can't whites stick together is the follow-up to that. Okay? Yeah. Where's Vinny, though? I don't know. I don't know where my goat Vinny is. But I do know that Patrick Bet-David's been steady ducking me, but he has no issues fucking talking to Nick Fuentes. One must ask the question, why? Isn't it kind of negative for a person's rep to appear with Nick? No, that's the old method. I don't think you guys understand. I said this for the past 2 years. If anti-Israel sentiment grows in this country, I suspect that it won't be a real anti-Zionist movement, but more so will likely grow through anti-Semitism. Nazism is on the rise. What more can I say? How would a domestic fascist, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel movement affect those being slaughtered today right now in Gaza? Would it mean a drying up of the well for Israel's military? Fuck no. No, absolutely not. And Nick Fuentes Nick Fuentes basically changing his narrative, changing his tune pretty aggressively in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination should show you that. These guys only want power, and they want power to enforce what they believe is the white American agenda. They will continue their allegiance with Israel because Israel's fighting the Muslims, the bad guys. They don't like Muslims either. I don't even think it would even remotely change America's perspective on Israel, America's foreign policy, if there was like a full-blown fascist. They would say anti-Semitic shit. They would foment discontent against Jews for all of the reasons that they claim Jews are bad, like, moral degeneracy, pornography, liberalism, multiculturalism, all of the same things that Nazis fucking railed against. All the while, they would still be attached to Israel by the hip. It's a win-win for Israel anyway, because then the Jews that are afraid of living out their normal lives here in the United States of America would have no other option but to basically fucking flee to Israel. Yeah, I used to tell people that Israel was in a nationalist conflict against the Palestinians and didn't mind Muslims more broadly, but increasingly they were trying to win their nationalist conflict against Palestinians by inciting a religious war against Muslims everywhere. No, that's precisely what they're doing. They've always been doing that. Islamophobia is a major factor. 9/11 was a gift. Straight up. It basically brought what Israel considered to be the big war, a war against all Muslim nations, to the fucking home front. Clip it. What, saying 9/11 was a gift to Israel is not a controversial opinion at all. Benjamin Netanyahu certainly recognized it as such. Was good knowing you. Oh, God. Oh, you got me, dude. Oh, man. I said something that people are going to once again present to falsely smear me. Oh, my Lord.